How are you? I am good. Thank you for asking. And I have got today and tomorrow off from work, which I know again, but we have annual leave. We might as well use it. And I am, of course, going to be working on my project, Project Emerald, which, hi, if you're new here, I am Aman. I speak about my writing journey, and this entails writing, reading, illustrating, and just my experiences and thoughts in general. So, welcome. And I'm working on my first ever manuscript, which is called Project Emerald. I'm still very much in the early stages of this project. I've done some brainstorming, some outlining, and I've got some basic understanding of some of the characters. But in this video and over the next couple of days, I am going to be introducing the project to myself and to you guys, and it's just going to be a fun way for me to really familiarize myself with what I want the whole atmosphere and mood of this novel to be, and also possibly go into more details such as some of the characters and some of the outline as well. So it's going to be fun. This novel is a fantasy novel. There is a romance in there. I don't think it's a romantic. I think it's probably more of a romance subplot, but I'm still working out the themes and the tropes and things like that. So very much in the early stages. And I'm going to start off by actually putting together a Pinterest board for this book, because I did very briefly start adding pins to a board for this at the very beginning, but it was so early on that I really didn't know what I wanted it to be. Now I've got a bit of a better understanding, I think. So I want to put one together and also then put that as my background on Scrivener, because I think you can do that. And then I also possibly might have it as my background on my laptop, just so that I am in the mood and I'm excited to write every time I open it. So that is what we're going to do first. Hi, so I did put together the Hi, so I did put together stop. Hi, so I did put together the Pinterest board. It was a lot of fun. It opened up my mind more to how I want the characters to look, what I want them to wear a little bit, and also the world building, the architecture of the worlds, and just a better insight into those aspects that I was kind of struggling with or stuck on a little bit. So it's opened up my eyes to that, and I'm definitely going to continue adding things onto the board when I want to or feel like I need to. So it's been great to visualize certain aspects a lot better. And I did put together a mood board, and instead of having it as a background, I've just got it as one of my pages in the Scrivener document so that I can refer back to it and have a look at it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I definitely understand why so many people do it. It's been helpful, and I have got a board on Pinterest for this project, which I will link in the description below if you want to have a look at it, because I will probably be adding things as I go along and as I'm exploring different aspects, just to help me visualize certain things in more depth when I'm trying to figure it out or brainstorm. So it was a lot of fun. I'm so glad I did that. I actually have to run off now because I have a pedicure. So it is my day off. So we got to add some relaxation into it. So I'm going to head there, and I will either pick this back up this evening or tomorrow morning. So I will see you then. morning, everyone. It is the next day now, and I want to apologize for the fact that I really did not film much of anything yesterday afternoon and evening. I kind of just got swept up, but it was very peaceful, very restorative, very relaxing. And I want to talk to you now about the mood board that I did yesterday. So we're going to talk about it in a bit more depth. Now, this is the first mood board that I have put together for this project, and I wanted to show the main elements of the manuscript that I have so far. Firstly, the magic. Now, I definitely think that shows in this mood board, perhaps a little bit too much, so I might want to dull it down a little bit. But that was the first thing I really wanted to bring into play here. The second is I have two species that I'm thinking of exploring in this novel. The first is fairies, the second is mermaids. So I wanted to show these two different worlds, how they oppose each other, and also how they interact. So the different colors for each, the different experience you would have within each of them. Obviously, one's on land, one's under the sea. Once I got a bit more of an understanding of that kind of atmosphere, I then started to look a bit more at the different architecture for each and how the different cities would be built up, which was so much fun. There are so many amazing images on Pinterest that I had a blast looking at them, saving a bunch of pins, and I'm definitely going to continue to do so. But looking at the different architecture styles helped me understand the differences and also figure out how I wanted that to play into the plot as well. So that was so much fun. I will definitely continue to explore this because there's a lot of world building that I still need to do, but this was a great start. I then started to look a bit more at the characters. First of all, how the different species would look, differences between the two, the similarities, and then also I wanted to look at my main characters. So this includes how they look, what they might wear, some accessories they might have as a species and also as individuals. So I wanted to bring that a little bit into here as well. And I love how the mood board turned out. I have got it as my background on my Scrivener composition mode, I believe it's called, and it just looks amazing. I really enjoy looking at this mood board and it just gets me really excited for the world that I'm building. So that was a lot of fun. Now, today I'm actually going to be joining a live stream, and instead of watching a replay of it, it's actually going to be live, which is great because Alyssa in the books, she does her live streams, I believe at 6 a.m. in her time, which is midday for me. So that just works perfectly for me today. So I'm going to be joining that live stream shortly. And when I do, I'm going to be looking at two things in the writing sprint. Firstly, I'm going to be writing my first ever blurb for this novel because I've seen in a lot of places that it's good to have to write this because it's a summary of your whole novel and it's good to clear it up in your own mind, even if it changes along the way and it gets adapted, just to have like a first version of it. So I'm going to do that. The second thing I'm going to be doing is actually looking at the outline a bit more. After I did the mood board, I've acknowledged that there's a lot of world building I need to do. So I want to see how I'm going to bring that in, what world building I want to look at first, those kind of things. So I'm going to be looking at the outline with that. During this writing sprint, I attempted to write the blurb a few times. I realized that I was stuck on the aspects that referred to the world building itself and the history of the world. This made me realize that I hadn't done enough work on these aspects as they were still quite confused in my own head. So I decided that this is what I would focus on in the next sprint. I've always found it easier to really brainstorm using pen and paper, which is why I just started to write down some rough notes and ideas of the things that have happened in this world, and also starting to piece together the timeline of it and how they impacted other cities and people. I found that this development really helped me to get a clear understanding of what was happening in the world in the present moment and how the past had impacted it. I was also able to gain some clarity on many details that I originally was unsure of. That writing sprint was so productive. I managed to clear up a lot of the missing aspects regarding the world building, the timeline, what's happened in the past before we get to the start of this actual story, and how the different species have interacted with each other before, what's happened during that time, what conflicts have arisen, what of those aspects are impacting our main characters when the story begins, and just the history in general as an overview. It was so important for me to clear that up, and I'd been struggling with it for quite some time. So I'm glad I managed to get through that during this set time. And because I've cleared that up, I feel like a burden has kind of been lifted, and I was actually in a bit of a flow. So I continued after the writing sprint was over, and I managed to actually do like a very basic map of the different territories that I think are going to exist in this world. I just needed to draw it out quickly so that it was out of my head and it was a bit clearer where things were, and also then I can place where my main character will be, where they'll be going, things like that. So I'm so glad that is cleared up, because obviously that impacts the entire plot and it impacts all of the characters, their entire histories, their families' histories, and what adventure they're about to get going on. So that has really helped me gain so much clarity, and it's going to help me detail this plot, this outline, and the characters much better than I had been, because those things had been so unclear and I'd been stuck on them. So now that that is done, I'm actually going to take a break, and because sunset is at like 3:30 now, I'm going to have like a cozy evening where I'm going to put a different writing sprint replay up on the background, and I'm going to be working on the characters. As I mentioned, because the world building is much clearer to me now, working on the characters is going to be so much easier to figure out their histories, how that impacts where they are now and where they're going to be going. So I'm going to be working on those, and I might even work a little bit with Pinterest to get a clearer visual representation of the different characters. And so yeah, that is what I will be doing when I get back from my break. Hello, so it is the next day now, and the character development that I worked on yesterday evening was super successful. I think, well, I know, because I worked on more of the details of the world building and the timeline of it earlier on in the day, it was so much easier to work on the characters and their backstory, because I could intertwine it more with the world as a whole, because I actually understood what was going on now, whereas before I was kind of all over the place. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how to bring them together, because I had no clue what the different territories were, what the people were like, what the history was. I had ideas, but I hadn't clarified it until yesterday. So that meant that when I worked on the actual characters later on in the day, I was so much clearer in the world on its own, that I was able to bring those characters in at different stages and intertwine their backstory with the whole world. So that worked really well. I worked on my main characters and then my main side characters. So I have three main characters. I have the female lead, her love interest, and the general, who plays a big part in the story, I think. And then I have, I think, five side characters that impact the plot and those main characters quite a bit. I managed to get a better understanding of each of their backstories, their misbeliefs, how they play into the world as a whole, and also how some of them have histories with one another at the moment. And I also managed to use Pinterest to find some images that represent each of the characters, kind of like an avatar for each of them. And these are not final images at all, but I think having them makes it a lot easier for me to differentiate between all of the different characters, what they kind of look like, distinct qualities they might each have, and just things like that. So it's been great. It really increased my understanding of each of the characters and how they play in the world and how they're going to impact the plot. Overall, in the past couple of days, I've progressed so much. I made the mood board, which is so exciting. I still love it. I still look at it quite often, and that has been great to get a clearer understanding of the world building, the architecture and characters. And then I, of course, really developed the history of the world, the timeline, even started looking at a basic map of the world, which has cleared up so much for me. It's made it so much easier to then understand the characters more, go into more detail with the plot, and just figure it out with much more clarity than I had done before. And then, of course, the characters themselves, I'm getting closer to them. I'm figuring out more of what they want, what they need, how they're impacting the story, how they're not, and things like that. And so it's becoming a lot more clearer to me. And I can definitely say that I'm now well and versed, introduced to Project Emerald. I hope you are all too. So that is it for this video. I will see you in the next one where we continue this journey of writing this manuscript. And until then, happy writing!